Chapter 26 of That Mainwaring Affair. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. That Mainwaring Affair by A. Maynard Barber. Chapter 26. Mainwaring versus Mainwaring. The case of Mainwaring versus Mainwaring had been set for the opening of the December term of court, being the first case on the docket. The intervening weeks, crowded with preparation for the coming litigation, had passed, and now, on the eve of the contest, each side having marshalled its forces, awaited the beginning of the fray, each alike confident of victory, and each alike little dreaming of the end. From near and far was gathered an array of legal talent, as well as of expert testimony seldom equalled, all for the purpose of determining the validity or invalidity of a bit of paper, yellow with age, time-worn and musty, which stood as an insurmountable barrier between Ralph Mainwaring and the fulfillment of his long-cherished project. The Fair Oaks tragedy still remained as deep a mystery as on the morning when, in all its horror of sickening detail, it had startled and shocked the entire community. No trace of the murderer had been as yet reported, and even Mr. Whitney had been forced to acknowledge, in reply to numerous inquiries, that he had of late received no tidings whatever from Merrick, either of success or failure. Since the announcement of Harold Mainwaring at the club that he would not touch a farthing of the Mainwaring estate until not only his own name should be cleared of the slightest imputation of murder, but until the murder itself should be avenged, it had been rumored that the party at the Waldorf was in possession of facts containing the clue to the whole mystery. Though this was mere conjecture, it was plainly evident that whatever secrets that party held in its possession were not likely to be divulged before their time. The party had been augmented by the arrival of the senior member of the firm of Barton & Barton, while the register of the Waldorf showed at that time numerous other arrivals from London, all of whom proved to be individuals of a severely judicial appearance and on extremely intimate terms with the original Waldorf party. Of the business of the former, however, or the movements of the latter, nothing definite could be learned. Dispatches in cipher still flashed daily over the wires, but their import remained a matter of the merest surmise to the curious world outside. Ralph Mainwaring, on the contrary, since the arrival of his London attorneys, Upham and Blackwell, with Graham, the well-known chirographical expert, had seized every opportunity for rendering himself and them as conspicuous as possible, while his boasts of their well-laid plans, the strong points in their case, and their ultimate triumph, formed his theme on all occasions. Mr. Whitney's position at this time was not an enviable one, for Ralph Mainwaring, having of late become dimly conscious of a lack of harmony between himself and his New York attorney, took special delight in frequently flouting his opinions and advice in the presence of the English solicitors; but that gentleman, mindful of a rapidly growing account, wisely pocketed his pride, and continued to serve his client with the most urbane courtesy, soothing his wounded sensibilities with an extra fee for every snub. On the day prior to that set for the opening of the trial, among the numerous equipages drawn up at one of the piers, awaiting an incoming ocean liner, was the Mainwaring carriage, containing, as usual, Ralph Mainwaring, Upham and Blackwell, and Mr. Whitney. The carriage and its occupants formed the center of attraction to a considerable portion of the crowd, until attention was suddenly diverted by the sight of a stylish turnout in the shape of an elegant trap and a pair of superb bays driven tandem, which passed the Mainwaring carriage and took its position at some distance nearer the pier. Seated in the trap were Harold Mainwaring and Hugh Mainwaring, Jr. Their appearance together at that particular time and place excited no little wonder and comment, especially when, the gangplank having been thrown down, the young men left the turnout in care of a policeman and walked rapidly towards the hurrying stream of passengers, followed more slowly by Ralph Mainwaring and his party. All was explained a few moments later, as that embodiment of geniality, William Mainwaring Thornton, loomed up in the crowd, his daughter upon one arm, upon the other Miss Carleton, and accompanied by Mrs. Hogarth and the usual retinue of attendants. "Looks like a family reunion, by George!" exclaimed one of the onlookers, as a general exchange of greetings ensued; but to a close observer it was evident that between some members of the different parties the relations were decidedly strained. Not so with Mr. Thornton, however. His first greetings were for the young men. "Well, well, Hugh, you contumacious young rascal, how are you? I hear you've kicked over the traces and set the governor and his sovereigns at defiance. Well, you've shown yourself a Mainwaring, that's all I have to say. Here is a young lady, however, who is waiting to give you a piece of her mind. You'll have to settle with her." Papa!" exclaimed Edith Thornton in faint protest. Her fair face suffused with blushes as she came forward to meet her lover, while her father turned towards Harold Mainwaring. "Well, my dear sir," he said, extending his hand with the utmost cordiality, "I am glad to meet you in your own proper sphere at last. I always thought you were far too good looking for a secretary. But, joking aside, my dear boy, let me assure you that as the son of Harold Scott Mainwaring, one of the most royal fellows I ever knew, I congratulate you and wish you success." Deeply touched by Mr. Thornton's kindness and his allusion to his father, the young man thanked him with considerable emotion. "That is all right," the elder man responded heartily. "I was very sorry not to have met you in London, but I heard the particulars of your story from Winifred, and, well, I consider her a very level-headed young woman, and I think you are to be congratulated on that score also." "No one is better aware of that fact than I," said the young man warmly, and passed on to meet the young ladies, while Mr. Thornton turned to confront the frowning face of Ralph Mainwaring. "Hello, Mainwaring, what's the matter? You look black as a thundercloud. Did you have something indigestible for luncheon?" "Matter enough, I should say," growled the other, unsuccessfully trying to ignore Mr. Thornton's outstretched hand, "to find you hobnobbing with that blackguard." Mr. Thornton glanced over his shoulder at the young people with a comical look of perplexity. "Well, you see how it is yourself, Mainwaring. What is a fellow to do? This is a house divided against itself, as it were, and no matter what my personal sentiments towards you might be, I find myself forced to maintain a position of strict neutrality." "Neutrality be damned! You had better maintain better parental government in your own family." "As you do in yours, for instance?" "You know very well," continued Ralph Mainwaring, flushing angrily, "that if you had forbidden Edith marrying Hugh under present conditions, he would have got down off his high horse very quickly." "That is something I would never do," Mr. Thornton replied calmly, "for two reasons. First, I have never governed my daughter by direct commands and prohibitions, and second, I think just as much of Hugh Mainwaring without his father's money as with it. More, if it is to be accompanied with the conditions which you imposed." "Then am I to understand," demanded the other angrily, "that you intend to go against me in this matter?" "My dear Mainwaring," said Mr. Thornton, much as he would address a petulant child, "this is all the merest nonsense. I am not going against you, for I have no part in this contest. My position is necessarily neutral. But if you want my opinion of the whole matter, I will tell you frankly that I think, for once in your life, you have bitten off more than you can swallow, and you will find it so before long." "Perhaps it would be just as well to reserve your opinion till it is called for," the other answered shortly. "All right," returned Mr. Thornton, with imperturbable good humor. "But any time that you want to wager 1,000 or so on the outcome of this affair, remember the money is ready for you." The conversation changed, but Ralph Mainwaring was far more chagrined and annoyed than he would have acknowledged. Mr. Thornton's words rang in his ears till they seemed an augury of defeat, and though outwardly as dogged and defiant as ever, he was unable to banish them, or to throw off the strained sense of depression which followed. Meanwhile, amid the discordant elements surrounding them, Harold Mainwaring and Winifred Carleton found little opportunity for any but the most desultory conversation, but happily there was little need for words between them. Heart can speak to heart through the subtle magnetism of a hand clasp, or the swift flash from eye to eye, conveying meanings for which words often prove inadequate. "You wrote that you were confident of victory, and your looks bear it out," she said with a radiant smile. "But I would have come just the same, even if there had been no hope of success for you." "I need no assurance of your faith and loyalty," he replied, gazing tenderly into her luminous eyes, "but your coming will make my triumph 10 times sweeter." "Of course you will spend the evening with us at our hotel? Uncle cabled for apartments at the Savoy, and I am all impatience to learn whatever you are at liberty to tell me concerning your case, for there must have been some wonderful developments in your favor soon after your arrival in this country. You have seemed so much more hopeful, and do not let me forget, I have something to show you which will interest you. It is a written statement by Hugh Mainwaring himself regarding this identical will that is causing all this controversy." "A statement of Hugh Mainwaring's?" Harold repeated in astonishment. "How did it come into your possession?" "That is the strangest part of it," she replied hurriedly, for they had now reached the carriages and waiting for them. "I received it through the mail from America a few days before I left London, and from, you cannot imagine whom, Mr. Merrick, the detective. How he ever knew my address, or how he should surmise that I was particularly interested in you," she blushed very prettily